Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Let us start by giving you all a quick brief on what Octanet is. So, Tech Octanet is a budding startup headquartered in Bhubaneswar, specializing in IT solutions across diverse sectors including e-commerce, real estate, automation, and personalized business application. Our primary focus is to provide affordable services to startups, aiding them into their digital initiatives. In addition to our core services, we are expanding into the corporate training sector, aiming to equip future corporate employees with a solid foundation. We also address student needs by identifying academic project requirements, internship opportunities, and offering comprehensive solutions. We are proud to be incorporated as an organization with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, registered with MSME, and approved by AICTE for internship programs. Also, our commitment to quality is underscored by ISO 9001 2015 certification, ensuring that every project we undertake reaches highest standards of excellence. Okay, thank you so much. That was all. Let us now stage our instructor and start today's session.
Hello students, welcome to the Python Development Workshop Day 1. This is going to be a 4 days long workshop where each day we'll learn about the different concepts and the different uh, data structures and other loose Python that are associated with the Python. In today's session, we'll basically look to the compilers and in the interpreters, we look to the variables, we look to some of the conditional statements that we use in Python for defining the conditions, and we will also look to the type of a data type, that is a list. So if I hope I'm audible, can somebody write in the comment section? I'll just present my screen so that we can start. Okay, is my screen visible to everyone? I hope it's visible. Okay, like my screen is visible, so we'll just start. Whenever we come across any of the programming language, we see how this set of code or the set of lines or the instructions that we write inside our code is executed. So the system executes our code using the either compiler or the interpreter. So before starting with any of the language, you should first know how that particular, or like how your program statement is particularly executed inside the system. So we will see what is compiler, we'll see what is an interpreter, what is the basic difference between them, and then we'll say how your Python works, for like how your Python executes and compiles your code. Then we'll see what is the like a basic background of the CPU and the memory. I hope I'm audible and visible to everyone. So let's start. Okay. So if we come across the compiler versus interpreter, we should exactly know what is it. So a compiler basically translates your code that you wrote in the high level programming language, okay, into the machine code. So whatever the code that you write is in a high level programming language, that is a third generation language, and it translates your that code into a machine code. Machine code is basically a binary language code that consists of 0 and 1. Then we have like how does this work. So whenever your machine language is like translated from program, like translated by line into a machine code, we call it as a interpreter translation. Whereas your entire program or the entire code gets converted into a machine code, then we call it as compiler translation. Then we see compiler code gets run faster than the interpreted code, because the reason behind this is the compiler will convert all your program at once to a machine code, and all the errors or that will be spotted will be at the end, after once the whole of the conversion will be done. Whereas in the interpreter, your code gets converted line by line. Your line by line conversion means that your one line will be converted. If there is an error, you need to solve that out, and then it will go to the next line execution. So this way it gets slower. Now we have compiler displays all the errors after compilation. On the other hand, the interpreter displays every errors each line one by one. That is why it takes a lot of time than the compiler. Now we have compiler is based on translation linking model, whereas the interpreter is based on the interpretation model. This we'll see later. This is this like you can see this words on the later part. If we see what all languages uses what type of compilers or the interpreters, so the compiler is used by the languages such as C, C++, C Sharp, Java, Scala. These are the languages that uses the compiler to convert their code into machine code. The interpreters are used basically by the PHP, Perl, Ruby, JavaScript. Your Python also uses the interpreter. Okay. Now, am I audible and visible to everyone? Or is my screen visible to everyone? Can somebody in the chat box please write and confirm? In the meantime, okay. Since there is no response, but I'll still continue. Okay. So if I come on to the Python compilation and execution, how your Python compiles and executes your code is the main question. Say in your code editor, you write your Python code, right? Then from here, you save your code into a file named .py. This py is the extension that makes the compiler guess that it is going to be a Python file. Now this source file is converted to a bytecode using the Python interpreter. This bytecode is basically a machine code. Okay. Once this machine code is now taken to a operating system for all the necessary tasks and is returned back through the output, and this output is always in the language that the user has like input. Okay. Now we have several modules and interpreters. So whenever you see that file, you have got the .py extension to say that the necessary file is of Python. Now if we see that how your CPU and main memory and other devices work to produce all the necessary tasks that is required in the problem statement of your code, we basically have two types of softwares in our system. One we have system software and the other one we have the application software. So if I say about the system softwares are the software that are already embedded inside of system and remain constant over across all the systems. If we talk about the examples of the system software, we can have a file explorer, we can have a web browser, we can have the recycle bin, we can have the disk management system. So these are the software that are already pre-installed in your system whenever you bought them. Like if I talk about the application software, so the application softwares are the software that may change upon on the system based upon the requirement of the user. If a user needs something of like is a basically a data analyst or something, you may find a Power BI, Microsoft Excel, etc. document etc. type of software inside the system. If suppose somebody is like a designer, they may have some specific designer softwares inside the system. Then the next question that we come across is the persistent data. So the persistent data is the data that remains saved whenever you switch off or you put down your system. Now we will see how and when CPU executes the memory. So basically, CPU is the hardcore part of the system that basically carries all the instructions. So CPU executes all your statements, all your instructions, like within a continuous process that is also known as the instruction cycle. The instruction cycle has three steps: fetch, decode, and execute. Fetch is to take up all the instructions that you need, and this fetch code is basically updated after each instructions. Whenever each instruction is executed, the next instruction will become up. Now decode. The decode is to convert all the instructions into a machine code language so that the CPU is able to understand like what to do. Then executes. CPU basically executes and performs all the necessary operation using the arithmetic logical unit, your control unit, or the necessary units. So if I see this diagram, we can see there is a main memory. The main memory is the memory that we also known as the random access memory, and it contains all the necessary data for the time the system is power off. As soon as the system is power off, the main memory does not contain any of the saved work. So it is necessary to save your work once before you switch off the system. Now this we have a disk storage. Disk storage is basically a permanent storage area where you all your softwares or your uh, long term save data. If I come about to the system software, I already told you we have the various applications that have this data stored, and these type of data may not be used frequently or daily, so they are stored in the permanent storage, also known as the read-only memory. Your hard drives, your uh, other HDD and all that, they are basically the examples of the read-only memory or the permanent storage areas. Any doubt till here? If you have any doubt till your voice is not clear, am I not audible? Students, please reply. Am I audible, students? Okay, thank you. So this was all about the compilers and the interpreters, how your Python codes get executed. Then we have how your CPU, main memory, and the storage areas work to execute the instructions. Now, if I look onto the basic idea of Python, I think most of the people here know what is Python. They are very much familiar to the syntax of Python, to the data types, to the variables, to the loops, and everything. And if you guys have any previous background of any programming language, you might be very much familiar and you'll find this to be very easy in terms of the code and all. So, if I ask a simple question, can somebody tell, is Python an object-oriented programming language? Question mark. Students, please once confirm that whether my voice is clear to all of you or not. Okay, if my voice is clear, I have asked one question. Can somebody tell me, is Python an object oriented programming language? Okay, this yes is for that voice, my voice is clear, or for the question that I've asked. So I think this is for the question that I have asked, and yes. So Python is an object oriented programming language, but we can have the structured programming also, and basically we use the Python for the structured program only. It's very like if you want to work on the object oriented programming languages and for the syntax, we find Java and other programming languages to be more familiar. So okay, got it. Okay, so let's start now. This is where we'll basically start with the variables. So variable are basically used to store the data. These are considered to be as a pocket where you can hold some data and it can be manipulated later on also. So variables are basically used to store any of the data that you can like change it later on, or you can find it and you can like store it for the later use also. Okay. Now we have, what does the variable comprise of? So the variables comprise of So the variables comprise of the number of letters, digits, and underscores. There are several rules that you must follow while you declare your variable or while naming your variable. Okay, so basically the variables consist of the numbers of letters, digits, and underscore characters. If I say the variables must not begin with any numerical value and should not have any special symbols. If you want to have the variable name that comprises of two words, you need to separate each word with a underscore. So if I see the example, I'll see total. This is a valid variable name. Now if I see the mark one, this is also a valid special symbol. Now if I see the average mark, this average mark is basically separated with an underscore. So yes, this is a valid variable name. Now if I see the another variable name that has got the name as 3 mark. So this is an invalid state. Well, invalid variable name because 3 is a numeric data type, and you should not use any numeric data type as the first letter of the variable name. This is considered to be an invalid. Now if I see 345, this is an invalid data type. Like not data type, but as if I say about as a variable, you cannot have any name of the variable as the numerical data. Like 345 is itself a number that is constant. You cannot have it as a variable name. Now, the next point that I come across is Python a case sensitive language? Yes, Python is a case sensitive language. That means the lowercase and the uppercase characters are significant. Are significant in terms of that means your letter A in uppercase and lowercase have different values and are considered to be significant. Now, if I say the variable name should not be a keyword, so in Python language and in other language, we have got some like some words or some words, or you can say have the specific meaning in that particular language. If I say about for, if else, these are the sensitive words in the Python language because they have got their own functions defined. Okay, now, so these variable name should not be a keyword. If the variable name is a keyword, this is considered to be an invalid uh, variable name. As I've told you, for any of the variable name that has two letters or the two words, you need to separate them with underscore. You cannot leave the white spaces between them. So, the variable name must be meaningful as carefully chosen variables make your code more readable. So, whenever you are naming your variables, those variable name should be very meaningful, should be considerate with the data that they are storing, so that other person who is reading your code is able to understand, and this makes your code more efficient and readable. Now, if I see when we basically use the lower camel case as the first letter of every word is capitalized except the first word for the example. Okay, so if I see the example of like we use the l- camel case. So if I see how you're going to name the variable, it is suppose the total marks is a variable here. So this is going to be in a lower camel case, but the first word of the second so the first letter of the second word is going to be capitalized, else everybody is going to remain in the lowercase. So this was about the variables. We will see some of the basic examples of variables, some of the invalid things, some of the rules of the variables in the practical session. If you have any problem till here, please say, or you can ask, or any doubt you can also ask. Okay, okay, Aditya, will then move ahead. Okay, okay. If I come across the identifiers, letters, and tokens, if I see them in Python, we will basically find out that all the user defined alphanumeric words to identify a variable, function, class, module, or other objects. So they are called identifiers. They are called identifiers because they are basically used to identify whatever is there a variable, function, class, module, or any other object. We call them as the identifiers. Then we have raw data that are stored in variables and can't split like numerical literals, string literals, boolean literals are called or the special literals. So any raw data that is stored in variables and cannot split, like it can be numerical data, literal data, or your string data, these are called the special or the what I say, any data type of data that cannot be split up and are stored inside a variable are known as raw data. Coming on to the tokens, tokens are the smallest unit of program. Smallest unit of program, that means your tokens can be your keywords or identifiers. Any of the operators that we have used in the mathematical operations are considered to be as the tokens. Okay. Now if I see the comments. Okay. So whenever you write some description about the code or function, like if you have a code and you want to define the behind the story of any of the statement, any variable, or any of the few lines, we basically use comment to write what all has been executed, will be executed here. So, and that will not be executed, remember, that will not be executed also. So in Python we use hashtag to describe a comment. In Python we have the inline comments, the block comments, we have the multi-line comments also. We'll see them in the practical today. Okay, now if I come across the fact that what what if we find the errors inside our code. So the process of finding the errors, resolving them is known as debugging, and the errors are known as bug. So debugging is the process of finding the errors in program and process to trace those errors and resolving it again. So we have several types of errors. We have the semantic errors, we have the runtime errors, we have the invalid keyword syntax errors, we have the runtime errors. So these errors we'll see in the day 2 or the day 3 of this workshop. But for the timing, you should at least know that what all are the type of errors that one come across while they write a code. Okay, so if I see, okay, so if I see about what are functions. So functions are the basic, are like the block of code which is reusable. If I talk about the function again, function is a block of code that is reusable. You can call just the function anytime inside your code and you can use it. So functions will only execute when it will be called. Like whenever you will call the function, it will be only executed. If you're not going to call the function, it is not going to execute it. So your function can take any number of arguments, which is optional. Like you can have any number of arguments called up and like inside a function, and you can use them. Also, to return a data and to not return a data is basically a user's choice. Whenever if you want to return the data inside your after your function ends, you can, or it is that is not possible also. Okay, so if I come about the functions here, functions are of two types. One is the user-defined functions, and the second type is the default or the inbuilt functions. So the inbuilt functions are the functions that one can use it because they are already defined inside your system. This can be a print function, can be a for loop. So the functioning of these so the functioning of these functions are already defined. You can use them anywhere inside your code. Similarly, you can also define your own function and you can use them while you call them. Okay, so the functions are of two types: user-defined functions and the inbuilt functions. User-defined functions and inbuilt functions are the type of functions, but user-defined functions are more of a user choice perceptions, like the amount of the return statement, the arguments, the functioning of those user-defined functions are user-based, and not everybody can use it. Like it can only be used once that similar type of perception or the output is needed. So this was about the variables. That variables are the packet that can store the data. that can be later upon used and manipulated. Also, it can contain any number of letters, digits, or the special character, underscore. They begin with a letter, not with any of the special symbols or integer. Python is case sensitive. Also, the variable name should not be a keyword. All the reserved words cannot have the variable names. And then we have the identifiers, literals, and tokens. Identifiers can be your variable name, your function, class, module, with which you can like identify. Raw data is basically a variables that cannot be split up, like can be a numerical, string, boolean, literals, etc. Tokens are basically that contains your keywords, identifiers, and operators. Now, if I come on to the comments, comments are basically used to provide the more description about the code that you write. In Python, you can have the multi-line comments and as well as the single-line comments. And then the process of finding the errors in a program and process them to trace those errors is known as debugging. Now, the type of errors, if I see, we can have various types of errors. We can have the syntax errors, we can have the system errors, semantic errors, syntax errors, then we have the runtime errors. Then we come on to the functions. We have the function is a block of code that can be reused, and functions will be executed when it is called. Also, function can take any number of arguments, which is optional. Functions can return data. So built-in functions are the functions that they use and their other programs are already defined inside the system. For example, print function, for loop function, and other things. User-defined functions are the ones that the user creates as per its own convenience. Is it clear till here? If it is clear till here, we may move ahead. Okay, if it is clear, then we'll move ahead with the practical part. Okay, got it. Okay. If I say x is equal to 10, so x is a variable name and 10 is the data stored inside this variable. Okay. If I simply write print x. Now if I was say well, other variable, let's say y, and I just have this hello students. Okay. Now just print this y. Suppose that I just print this y. Okay. Okay. So this is the variable that has the name y and is storing the string or the uh, characters inside it. If I have a z as the another variable here, and I just store 3.14, let's say, and I print this z. So this z is basically holding the decimal point values. Okay, then was the integer type value, and this 3.14 is the decimal point, decimal type data type. Decimal data types, in like coming on to the Python, we call them as the floating point integers. Okay, we got this. Now we'll see how you can find the type of variable that a particular variable is holding. For that, we have the type function. So if I have, let's say, equal to 5, okay, and I'll print, I use the type function type A. Okay, okay, so it's saying that the A belongs to a class of integers. A belongs to a type class of integer. That means A is an integer type is an integer data type. Now suppose similarly if I carry on with these two variables also, if I have type 5. So if I say this variable y belongs to a class of string, that means the hello student is a string data type in Python. So anything that is enclosed between two inverted commas or the two like you can say between two these commas or the like the what we call this as all the inverted commas we can say as symbol. So these are basically the string data. Whatever is enclosed between these two inverted commas are basically considered to be as a string. Okay. If I write here 10 also, it is going to be considered as a string only. See, this is not considered to be as an integer. Now, if I have a z equal to 3.14, okay, and I'll just print type z is present. It's saying that 3.14 belongs to a class of integer. That means the 3.14 is a floating data type. Now, if I go with, let's say, b, okay, we have not used the b now, yeah, okay. I'll just print the type of b. So, this print type of b is a boolean value. Boolean value, that means it is going to have only two values, either true or false. So, what all data types we saw? Integer, string, float, and boolean value. Okay. Now we will see some of the rules for naming the variables. The variable name, your variable name must always start with the letter or the underscore. It should not start with any special symbol or numeric data. Then rest of the name can include your like combination of letters, special symbols, and the other underscores. Variable names are case sensitive. Case sensitive means your uppercase A is not similar to a lowercase a. Also, you cannot use the reserved words for the variable names. That means you cannot use any of the word that is already used in the Python for some function. You cannot use them as the variable. Now, I say valid val. No problem. It has not given me any error. Suppose if I come on to the fact underscore valid var. It has still not given me name. That means these two are the valid variable name. You can name your variables like this. Suppose if I write variable valid var equal to 3. Okay, so this is going to give me an error saying that cannot assign to expression. That means this is not a proper way of naming your variable. This is not a proper way of like naming your variable because this is not considered to be a name of a variable. So, so this was about the fact. Now if I see if I write print equal to 6, I don't know why it is not giving error, but this should also give me an error. Okay, invalid syntax. If I write if equal to 6, okay, why it is not writing for 4, I don't understand that. Sorry, print. I don't know why, but all the reserved word cannot be used as the variable name. Then we'll see how you can use comments in your Python. Okay. Suppose if I say x is equals to 1 and I'll simply say y equals to 4 or 3. Okay. I'll simply say z equal to 4x plus y. And if I write up hashtag addition code. Okay. So this is a single line comment that we have addressed in Python, and Python is not going to do anything with this. The compiler is not going to read this also, it is only going to read these 3 lines. This is considered to be an single line comment. Okay, so it has executed also. Suppose. So hashtag is basically is the single line comment. Okay. Now if I say it into a multi-line comment, I'll just have 3 here. This is a multi-line comment. Okay, I'll just close this. So this is a single line comment. This is a multiple line comments. Okay, if you're gonna run this, it's not going to execute anything because the Python compiler does not deal with the comments. Now, as I was saying or I was mentioning in the previous thing, that is that how you can use comments in the Python. So this is basically you're going to address the description to your code. Now, if I say that Python is a case sensitive language, then I should need to mention that how it is going to be a case sensitive language. For this reason, I told you that the uppercase A is not similar to a lowercase a. This is because of the ASCII values. The ASCII values are the values that are assigned to a symbol, to a character in a Python with a special value. The value for the uppercase and the lowercase characters are different, and hence it is considered to be a and hence it is considered to be different. Now, if I say if I have a character equal to a, okay. Now, if I say print ord character, I think it should work, but I'll probably try again. Okay. So if I say I give this a variable sky value, okay. So suppose this is the going to be a variable that is going to hold the value for this word. If I say print, okay, I got the wrong name for this. Got it, got it. Okay, I don't know what's the problem there, but basically we use the odd function to get the sky value for a character. Okay, suppose you want to know the sky value, wanted to know the sky value for a particular character, you can use the odd function. Then similarly, if you want to find out the character that is associated with a particular sky value, you can use the chr function. Suppose I have a sky value as equal to 65. Yeah. Okay. Now character is equal to, if I say run this, suppose. I don't know what the problem is exactly, but previous time it would work. But if I tell you in a very brief way, the CHR function is going to give you the character that is associated with that particular sky value. And for the 65, we have the, I think it's a small a or a uppercase A. Okay. If I talk about the RD function or the order function, this is going to basically give you the variable name to a, this is going to give you the like this is going to give you the sky value for a particular character that you have set. So this was till here. Anybody has any doubt till here? Else we'll move to the conditional statement. It is basics of Python. Yeah, it is very basics of Python. Like I've been told to like make you people understand from the very basics. That is why. If you have any doubt or something, you can please address here. Okay, so if you have no doubt, then we can move ahead. Now we will see some of the built-in functions in Python and the conditional statements. So, the built-in functions in Python are the functions that whose functionality is already defined. And suppose if I see examples of some of the built-in functions, we can have the input function, we can have the eval function, we can have the composition functions, and lot more. So as I told you in the last previous time, that built-in functions are a type of functions whose functionality is already defined and you can use them anywhere inside your code. The other type of functions were the user defined functions that you have to define by your own as per your own convenience and the usage. Now, if I come on to the conditional logic statements, so we have the three conditional statements in Python: if, else, and elif. If statements helps to control the execution of a program. How we'll see this in the practical part. Whenever you have any condition defined inside the if, you are going to have some of these statements inside it that is going to execute it once that conditions become true. Now, if clause is a mandatory statement, whereas elif and else clauses are optional. That means that whenever you're going to use the if, it is going to be an option for you to keep the elif and the else statements. But if you're going to keep the elif and the else statements, you're going to definitely going to have the if statement with you. So if clause is a mandatory statement. Now if I say if clause are always evaluated first. If clause are evaluated first, that means if the condition inside the if block becomes true, then the statements under it will be executed. And the program gets out of the conditional block then. Otherwise, the elif or the else block will be executed, or the next statement inside the program will be executed. Now we have how, like, it's saying that only one block of statement can execute on each time. That means you cannot use, like, the your if block or the else block cannot be executed simultaneously. Cannot be executed simultaneously means there each block can be executed at a time. If your else block is executing, that means your else block and the else block are not executing. Also, all the statements that are inside a particular clause will end whenever that particular indentation ends. Okay. So if I see about this conditional logic, I'll probably see that we have a if, this is a keyword. Then we have a boolean expression or the condition here. If this condition becomes true, the statements under if block will be executed. Otherwise, we have a else block and the statement inside the else block will be executed. Always remember, else do not have any condition defined. Now we have a chained condition. Chained condition, that means we have an if, then this boolean expression or any condition. If this condition becomes true, then we have the statements. If this is not true, then we go to the elif part. If the condition inside the elif block becomes true, then the statements under it will be executed. If both if and elif conditions were not true, then it goes to the else part. Now if I see this diagram here and I say there is a start button and it asks you to enter a number that is less than 10. You input the number, and if this number is greater than 10, then you stop the program. If it says it is less than 10, then we say that print what an obedient servant you are. So this was just a flowchart to execute how the if and the elif part works. Now if I see what are conditional logic statements, first one that comes into our mind is the nested conditionals. Nested conditional means, the word nested means something is inside the something. Your if statement, your conditional statements inside the conditional statements are known as the nested conditionals. So if I say I have a if and I want to have the statements under it, now in the else part we have again an if and else. So this is basically an nested conditions. Is it clear till here? Okay, if it is clear, then we'll just have a quick review again. Also, also if any of you have any doubt till here, you can ask it. If it is not necessary that is relevant with the topics that I'm continuing here, but it could be like something from the Python or the learnings that I've told you about the Python, like compilers, interpreters, variables. We'll come across the different type sections of the Python. But if any doubt till here, you can seriously ask. It's a one-to-one session. I don't want it to be a monologue. Okay. So if you have no doubt, we can continue. So we saw some of the we saw the conditional statements in Python that are basically if, else, and elif. Then we saw the if there's a mandatory clause statements, if else and elif are the optionals, you can keep them or you cannot you can even skip them. Then we saw that if clause will always be evaluated first. If that conditions become false, then only it's going to be a turn for the elif or the else block. Now we saw some of the basic syntax of the if and elif. Then we saw this like flow chart of how this works. Then we saw some of the conditional logics, and the first one that we saw was the nested conditionals. Now we'll see here. Okay, we'll start with the conditional statements. We can just have just a few seconds break, and then we can continue with the practical. Okay, so it will continue. So we'll start with this. So if I simply have a code of equal to 10, we have the if statement. Will print x is greater than 15. Else print x is less than 15. Probably I don't know what the problem is, but I'll simply just write there. So there's I write it again. Print x is greater than 15. Okay. So and the else part will simply say that x is not greater than 15. Okay. Around this. Oops. I don't know what the exact problem is there. But if we simply see this code, I'll try to resolve it in the next session. I don't know what the problem is with the uh, pattern. So here we have a variable. Okay. So we have an x as a variable here. Here, if we take the value x is equal to 10, so the value of obviously 10 is less than 15. So the else block will be executed and it should print that x is not greater than 15. Okay. And now if I see, but it's similar case, suppose if I write x equal to 10. If x if x percentage 2 equal to 0, simply print x is even. else we'll say it's a what number. Print result. And for this, if we have an else, we'll simply say print x is not positive. Let's start this. I don't know what the problem is exactly. I will see this in the next session. I'll try to resolve this. What is the problem with the backend here? Because every time I do it, I didn't find any such mistake. I'll try to explain you this code. Suppose if I say, suppose that if I say that here x is equal to 10. Now, if my x is greater than 0, it is going to definitely going to be a positive integer, right? Now, now if I say if this x is not less than, if f is not less than, is less than 0, it is going to be a negative integer, right? Or we can say it's not positive. Now this, if we have another, now if I see, now if I see this x percentage 2, like that means if x is divisible with 2, we can say it is a even number, right? Even is an even positive number. Now if I say this is not divisible with uh, 2, it is going to definitely going to be an odd number, so this is not positive number. If the very first condition of x not greater than 0 is not met, it's going to be directly ending up to the else part. This else part states that the x is not a positive integer. Okay. Okay. Any doubt till here, students? And there is one mistake on the second line where in the second line, if you guys can resolve it, because like in the past few times it has not happened such mistakes, but still. Any doubt till here? If there is any doubt till here, please tell me, else we'll move forward. Okay, else we'll move forward then. Any doubts, students? Any? Okay. Now there's a very famous problem. If you I don't know if you guys know, it is a grading problem. This grading problem is always I use VS Code for compiling. Yeah, I use VS Code only, but for these students who are just learning the Python, who have the Python as the very first programming languages, so I just want them they should try it with a very easy code editor so that they will at least get fluent with the code. Otherwise, for the compilation, you can have any Jupyter notebook, you can have your VS Code also. Okay, somebody please like acknowledge that. Do you guys have any idea about the grading problem in Python? Not in Python, like in various languages. Okay, so let's start with the grading problem. Grading problem is a very famous problem in Python for the conditional part. Okay, so we have a score equal to, let's say, I have some score that has got the value as like 83. Okay, then we have the if statement. Says that the score is greater than equal to 90. Oh, so we have the so if I say score is greater than or equal to 90, then we can have the grade as A. If your score or your marks are greater than 90, we can say that you have got a grade of A. If your score is greater than or equal to 80 but it is less than 90, then we say you have got a grade B. Similarly, if I say that your score is greater than or equal to 70 but less than or equal to 80, you have got the grade C. Similarly, for the case of 60, but if it is less than 60, we say that you have got the grade as F. Or similarly, as per the qualitative measures, we can have one more element here. Okay, suppose if I run this. Okay, I'll just print this grade here. Print grade, okay. I don't know what the problem is this. I need to resolve it. So for the time being, you can like see here that you have got the score value as 83, right? Now you say that if your score value is greater than or equal to 90, you're going to give this grade A. Okay, you're going to give a student grade A. Now, if this score is less than or equal to 90 but greater than or equal to 80, we'll say that it has got the grade B. Suppose now similarly for the each case for 70, 60, and 50. But if I say that your grade does not matches with any of the criteria that is mentioned in the if and the elif part, you're going to get the grade F. So this is how you can have the multiple conditions defined. So this is how you can like simply have the grade printed. This is how you can use the multiple conditions inside the code. I don't know why it is calling the same error again and again. I'll try to resolve it in the next session. Till the time being, you all please need to cope up with this only. Okay. And the other very famous problem is now if I have a very other again we have a very famous problem that is of a leap year checker. Okay, I know you guys would have understood that. So we basically going to have a program for checking whether a particular year is a leap year or not. And this problem is going to again arrive, but still. Suppose I have a year as 2024. Okay. Because this was a leap year, so it would be easy for us to check. Now if year percentage 4 equal to 0, I will say okay. I'll simply say okay. I don't know why this Gemini works every time there. Okay. So if I understand this code, just erase this only. Okay. Suppose if I have an year as 2024. Okay. If year percentage 4 equal to we have 0. Now if I have another condition, if your year is percentage 4, like your year there, your like any year that should be a leap year should has the primary condition that it should be divisible with 4. Then all other additional conditions should be satisfied. If year, I will see whether it is divisible with 100 or not. Percentage 100 equal to 0. We'll simply say that it is a leap year. But for this, we also want to have the additional condition defined, that is that whether your leap year is divisible with 400 or not. Because for a leap year, it should also be divisible with 400. Then it is going to make up some. Okay. Suppose if I write here, if year is going to be a nested condition 400 equal to 0, we'll just have print it's a leap year. Okay. Simply write this only. Now for this, if we'll have a else we'll say this is not a leap year basically, because it is not divisible with 400. It's not a leap year. Okay. we are going to write the else for the second if. Else print leave here. Okay. Okay. I will just going to write this else for the first if. Suppose if not is not visible with 4, you're not going to check the additional condition. You're just going to simply print that this is not a leap year. Okay. Okay, just simply print not a leap year. I was knowing this. Okay, so simply if I understand this code here, I'll get to know that to check whether a particular year is a leap year or not, we just have got few conditions. It should be divisible with 4, it should be divisible with 100, and it should be divisible with 400. Suppose if it is divisible with 4, then we are going to check the additional conditions. If it is not divisible with 4, we are not going to check the additional conditions. Then if I say that if it is divisible with 100, we are also going to check for the 400. If it is divisible with 400, then it is well and good, right? Similarly, if it is not divisible with 4, we'll say that it is not a leap year. So this is a very famous problem when we come across the so if I say about the conditional statement, so the very first two problems that comes into my mind is a very special problem of this leap year and the grading problem. They both are based upon the conditional statements and make you understand about the how complex the conditional statements could be to solve a problem statement. Okay, now if I go about with the fact of list, the very last topic of today's session is list. List. So we saw various data types, right? The various data types in Python are like your integer values, your floating points, your string, your boolean, your list, etc. Now we have list. List is a mutable data types. List is a mutable data type, that means list can store multiple data types. List is orderable, that means each entry inside a list has got some some indexes or something to make identify them. They are modifiable because you can change the values also. Now the list also contains some duplicate data. They contain some duplicate data because they're allowed to do so. You can have the multiple data of the same of the same values inside a list. Now we can access items of the list using index which start from 0 to n minus 1, where n is a number of items in the list. So all the now if I say all the elements inside a list have got indexes. That means the very first element is going to have the index 0, the other are going to similarly going to have the indexes increased by 1 till the n minus 1. N minus 1, here n is the number of items that you have in the list. Now we have the list construct. There are numerous ways in which you can create a list, but the very famous one is the list constructor. List constructor by default always create an empty list. Okay, it is going to create an empty list. Now we'll see different ways to create a list. So the different ways to create a list is, here we have given the name of a list as my list. That will create an empty list and will assign to a variable that is my list. Right. Okay. So this is basically the different ways of creating the list. Different ways of creating the list. Suppose I have a list named my list. Okay. These my list is basically going to create an empty list, that and this that data entries inside this will be stored in the my list. Now if I see, I have my list has three data items. One is the red, the other one is blue, and the other ones are green. So it has got three items. Basically, the red has got the index 0, blue has got the index 1, and the green has got the index 2. Now, this is basically like you can say, we'll see them in the later section, but this is also a data type. The test 1, test 2, and test 3 are enclosed inside the round braces are also a data type and has been converted into a list using list constructor. Okay. Now, now if I see Now, if I see about the other things, I will basically come upon to the fact that if I want to copy a particular list, let's suppose I want to copy the my list one to a my list. Okay, so I'll simply write my list one is equal to my list. Now this is nothing where the data has been copied. It is just saying that the both my list and the my list one are just pointing to the same object of the address, memory address. Okay, where the entries are stored up. Now, if I see about the other things, as if like this 1 comma Amit is already itself a list. Similarly, 2 comma Akhil, 3 comma Preeti, and 4 comma Shoaib are itself the list. As you can see, they are also closed inside other one parent list. So this way you can have the nested list. You can have a list inside a list. Now if I say simply say that you can iterate on the list using for loop is better than while loop. Okay. So whenever you want to iterate over the elements of the list, you should simply use the for loop. You can use the while loop also, but it is since while loop is a conditional loop, you cannot use it everywhere. You need to have a proper condition that takes up all the recursions, right? Or all the iterations, as you can say. That is why I simply say as of now that you should always use the for loop for over iterating over the data types. It can be list. If we see in the coming session, we'll learn about the dictionary sets, Python, and everything. Okay. So if I see this little piece of code, we have a student list that has got a numerous. So if I say I've got several. Okay. So here student is basically. So here basically student is what? Student is a list that is containing all the name of the students. Suppose we have the Amit, Akhil, Preeti, and Shobhan. We want to access them. We can access them using the for loop. Suppose I have for loop and I just want to have the suppose I want to have the name of the students here. And if I say for students and students, so student is an iterable variable here. This iterable variable is basically going to contain the name of the student and is going to change every time. Okay, and it is going to change every time once you use it. So for the first iteration, you're going to have the name as Amit. For the second iteration, you're going to have the name as the Akil. For the third iteration, similarly for other iterations also. You're going to have the same things. Okay. Now, suppose. Okay, for the you can also use the enumerate to have the like you can also use the enumerate for the like to iterate on the collection using the indexes. Suppose that if I say that I have an enumerate and I'll start with the iterable with the initial value as 1, sorry 0. If I say 0 is very convenient, okay, then the function is going to return that object and the default will be set to the 0. Each time if you're going to change this iterable variable, it is going to change that value and going to print that item of that particular index. Okay. Now, if I say about the list functions, so list functions are very important with the idea that so my list is a list that has got the values three values 1, 2, and 3. Len my list. This len function is going to return you the length of the function. That means how many items are stored inside the list. Then we have the mylist.append. This mylist.append function is going to add a single item in the existing list. Single item in the existing list means that this red data value will be added into the list in the very last position. In the very last position means that at the index n where your initial has where your initial list has got the indexes of 0 to n minus 1 and n is the total number of items. Okay, if I say my list dot extend 22 comma 33, this is going to give you the like it's going to add you the element in the existing list at the last position, but you're going to have you can also add the basic advantage with the extend function is that you can have an elements of the sequence, right? Now, if I see my list.count function, my list.count function is basically going to count the occurrence of that is basically going to count the occurrence of that particular item in the list. So if I say my list.count, it is going to give you the number of times 3 has arrived in the list. My list.pop0 is going to remove the element which is at index 0 and it is going to raise an exception if that particular index is not available in that inside the list. Now, if I say my list.remove is going to remove that particular item from the list. My list.reverse, this is not reserve, I'm sorry, it's going to be reverse. This my list.reverse is going to reverse the item inside the list. That means your first item is going to become the last item, your last item is going to become the first item. Now, if I say that Okay, so if I see the other functions, so if I say my list dot clear, so if I say my list dot clear, this is basically going to clear the list. Del is a keyword to delete a particular item. So if I say del my list and I have some indexes defined in form of these iterations, let's say start and an increment. Start and end are the like indexes position, and increment is like by how many elements you want to skip in between. So this del operator will remove all that subsequences. Now del my list is completely going to remove your list. My list dot insert is going to insert this hello at the index 1, and the basically going to add up the element. Okay. My list dot sort is going to sort your list inside in the ascending order, but but if you want it to be like by default it is going to sort it in the ascending order, but if you want to like sort it in the descending order, you're going to keep the reverse as true. That means that is going to give you the results in the descending order. Now, if I say if you want to sort it with particular condition, then suppose your key can be your like key is like where in which format you want to like sort. So simply you can have the length also, or you can simply have the maximum and minimum functions also. Now we have list comprehension. Before starting with the list comprehension, we can have sort of practical session for this. Suppose suppose I have the my list as 1, 2, 3 same elements in I'll take. Okay, I'll just print this. I don't know what the problem is. This I'm actually really very much terrified, like very ridiculous. This is okay. Anyways, if I simply say that this is a list, okay, okay. So this is going to give you the list. Now, if I say if I want to type print what type of data type it is, print type. I don't know what this problem is. I'll just comment this one first so that I could get the afterwards results. Okay, no problem. Whatever the issue is, I'll try to resolve it better now so that in the next session we don't face such problems. Okay. So basically, this is going to return the is going to return you the that this is a list data. Any problem till here, students? Use any other online compiler? Yeah, but like it's not been so far. I don't know why it is happening today. I'll try to resolve it, and I hope you don't find it in the next session. Any problem till here? Okay, we'll start again. We'll start with this then. Okay. So if you want to print, as told you, you can simply just print this list in this. Now if I say I have my list as simply a empty list, okay, and just say my list dot append, okay, and just say it done. Okay, so if I print this, still it's going to give me an error. I don't know why. So this append function is going to like store 10, 20, and 30 inside the my list, which was an empty list earlier. Now will be filled up with these 10, 20, and 30 data values. Now if I say if I want to iterate over this, okay, suppose I list equal to 1, 2, 3. No, no, it's full stop. Sorry. Okay. I say for I in lst print lst. Sorry, print I. I'm sorry. Okay. Still it's going to be minor, but similarly, if I see this, then this I is an iterable variable here in the list, and it's going to print each of the element that is there inside the lst. Now, if I see about the indexing, suppose I write lst 0, okay, 1. Okay, so the first element was 1, so it has got the 1. Similarly, if I write lst at 1, it will give me 2. So this is the way how you can actually get a particular value at a particular index. Okay, then I'll see is the probably the last element has got the index -1. So okay, the 3 was the last element and it has got the index -1. Now if I go on to the length function, we find that int parallel lst, not just have a simple lst declared. Yeah. I don't know. But this is going to return the total number of elements that is stored inside the list. So we have got 3. So it should return 3. Also, I want to tell you one thing, that the list can contain data of different data types. Like a list can have not only integer values, but it can have a mix of, like it can have a blend of integer, floating data types, your boolean value, like any other sort of. It can also have a list inside a list. Now, if I see a list inside a list, suppose if I have this as 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, now it's if I have 4. Okay, so this is a list. There's a small list 2 comma 3 also inside a list. So in this way you can have a multiple, like you can have a list inside a list. Any doubt till here, students? If you have any doubt till here, then tell me. Otherwise, I'll just close this session here. Since my compiler is not working properly, I'll look to it. And we can continue in the next class. Okay, if you have no worked out, then we can close up the session. We'll see you in the next session. Bye. Take care. Good night.